Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Can you guys hear me okay? Hopefully you guys can hear me. Hey. So we are going to be looking at the charts here. This is the usually scheduled Monday live stream. Checking out the charts, building up some potential names to be watching for the week, some potential setups, some potential thoughts on what's the general strategy. Long, short, neutral, bullish, bearish, kind of in-betweenish. Stocks are getting smacked. We're seeing the SPY, the S&P 500, the Dow gapping down huge today after a kind of a, we ended the week on a cautionary note, and I thought Monday's going to be an interesting day. If the virus fears really pick up over the weekend, then look out below. And I didn't think it'd be this bad, but wow, oh wow. Dow opened down pretty big. It was like 700-800 points at the low. Apple getting smacked. So, did a little bit of stock trading here, but now that that's wrapped up for now, I'm going to be looking at the broader crypto space here. What are the thoughts on BTC? I've already got the chart marked up here. This is the 4-hour view of BTC on Binance. And I'll explain this here in a little bit as we get more folks here on the line. Let me see what else we got going on here. And of course, we'll be looking at some of the leading names here over the weekend. We've seen a few kind of buck the trend here, but the general tone has been somewhat cautionary, very choppy. The shenanigans this weekend, the big push higher probably cleared out to the shorts, and then the quick spike lower, just kind of confusing what is going on out there. And so we'll be looking at all of that. Let me give it another minute here. And of course, any names you guys want to look at. So I'm going to go through some of the bigger cap names here and a few of the names that are on the trending list right now. But other than that, I'm going to focus on just the biggies here, as well as some of the broader market. We'll look at the stock index. We'll look at gold, continues to rally, and then we'll go from there. So we'll see how it goes. So typical live Monday morning stream. Well, it's not really morning anymore. I guess it technically is Monday morning, but it's for most of you guys, it's midday or late afternoon, or for my other side of the globe pals, it's definitely not morning. It's more like evening. So let me see here. Looks like there's a few requests already coming in. So I'm just going to jot some notes down, and then I will we'll get started here. So we'll look at gold, we'll look at that, all that good stuff here. Yes, thank you guys for the thumbs up. Icon dropping hard. BTC, of course. We'll look at Link. Some of the names that I covered on Monday or Friday's stream: Atom, Aeon. They had a pretty good run over the weekend, but we'll look at those again here. Power Ledger. I'm going to try not to focus on too many of the microcap names just yet. That's kind of what's mostly dominating the list here. Litecoin has been showing some really good relative strength lately. Definitely want to keep an eye on that guy there. Litecoin. Yeah, the gold-silver ratio is real interesting because that one has not moved, and gold obviously has continued to rally, but silver has been a significant laggard as of late. We'll look at Lend. Vertcoin. All right. H-bar. Yeah, we'll take a look at that one here. I haven't seen that one in a couple of days. All right. Well, let me see here. Thinking that's a good place to get started there. Thanks for the likes already. Thank you guys for the comments. I love the interaction as always. We'll get some more folks joining us here, and then we will get to it. So let's look at BTC. Let's look at the broader market cap first. Generally, we'll follow Bitcoin, of course, because Bitcoin is 60+% of the market cap. But looking at the total market cap, $276 billion. Saw some choppy action here over the weekend. The bounce continued. It was pretty timid up until late Saturday my time, and we finally saw that big spike higher, but it was short-lived. Quickly dropped lower, and now what I'm looking at is this lower trend line, and it's pretty much the same setup here of BTC and ETH and some of those other names. Watching this lower trend line, was that a dead cat bounce? Is this a little bit of a bear flag bounce? Or do we finally take out this resistance here on that 286, 289 level and get going? And that's just the general setup right now, kind of taking a cautionary notes. Looking at the broader BTC Dominance chart, I personally still expect this to bounce a little bit more. We had that initial bounce on that first leg down. It's kind of just settled out here. I'm still thinking we get 66 to 67, maybe as high as 68% before we get some more resumption to the downside. That would be ideal. What that would do is essentially you would see some capital flow from the altcoin space, especially the bigger cap names, into BTC here. BTC would be a little bit more of a port in the storm if we get another leg down. But then after that, I think if we get that broader pattern that I've been talking about in the Bitcoin chart, on the daily, weekly chart, and the broader reversal pattern looks like it's about to start taking place, I think the alts will lead again and going into the halving. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Then after that, of course, if we drop lower on the BTC Dominance chart, 62% was that first number I was looking for. I mean, we hit it almost to the button there, bouncing here a little bit. But below that, now that we've seen that little pause, then 60 is the next number, down to around 55, 57% or so. And that would just continue to show some altcoin outperformance, which is what I'm thinking will be the general theme of 2020, is a little bit of pullback in the BTC Dominance. Even if the price of Bitcoin continues to rally, I think the broader theme will be this overall downtrend in BTC Dominance, which is good for the alts, of course, which they need it, man. The altcoins have been in bear mode for the last year and a half, and this year has been a good start for them. So that's what I'm looking for there. Going to the BTC chart here. So let's do a little bit more looking at the chart here in some detail here. I'm going to go to the BTC chart on Binance. Now, zooming out, it's always good to get the big picture view, right? Zooming out here, all the chop, the near-term action, it's like a blip in the span of this bigger pattern that we're starting to see form. We've had this big rally at the start of 2020. It's been a nice move. And this most recent pullback, I mean, if it holds right here, could just turn out to be a nice little bull flag pullback, and then we'd get going again, right? That'd be the best case scenario right now, in my opinion, is very mild pullback in the big scheme of things. I know if you're at the lower level time frames and you're looking at margin trading and all that, then this is not a small pullback. You got some pretty big shakeouts. But in the bigger scheme of things, right, this is just a pause. It's still technically letting the moving averages catch up. Now the 10 EMA on the daily is getting very close to crossing bearish, and so just to be clear, my general stance on the market is still in that cautionary mode. I'm still kind of just, I'm not bearish, like this is the end of the move and we're gonna have a bear market, but in the near term, I'm thinking still play it a little bit more caution, maybe even some short trades, but intermediate to long term, I'm thinking this will bottom out here and we're gonna get a pretty nice secondary leg up after that. But near term, it's kind of one of those, it could go either way from here, and I'm still kind of, more than 50% in the, we'll see a little bit more downside. That's just my thoughts. But hey, that's just my thoughts. Trading execution is a different story. You got to have a plan for both scenarios. But in the big scheme of things, right, you've got this rally. It could just be forming this little bit of a bear flag, or bull flag, excuse me. And just remember that some of those key levels that I've been looking at here in terms of some support zones to be watching. The first biggie being that 382 level. That puts it right around that 9150 mark, which is, I'm still kind of that's my target personally. I'm still thinking we get there. Then below that, maybe we see 8700, 8800. Do we see the 618 retracement at 82, 8300? I would be surprised, but I mean, anything could happen. I would be a little bit surprised if we got that low. But I'm still thinking maybe we get, in the low 9Ks. And then after that would be interesting to see where the bounce starts to take place. So those are the levels that I'm watching here in the near term. If we zoom in here and start to look at this most recent price action, right, we had this rally, and it's just been the chop. You could say a little bit of head and shoulder type action, just choppy, right? It's just been wicky, choppy, quick moves down, then it kind of just goes flat, does a whole lot of nothing, and then the quick move up, quick move back down. And that's been frustrating some traders here, I know, because it's the lack of momentum, right? And that's the toughest markets to be in, is when there's not a lot of trending, right? Not like this where you'd go up, go pause, go up, this is chop, and potential just consolidation, maybe reversal, but potential consolidation underway. And that's really what's going on here. But we're at a little bit of a decision point here, right? You see the price starting to constrict. You've got these lower highs starting to form. This most recent bounce that we saw yesterday took it just shy of 10K, on some exchanges right to 10K, a little bit over, but that's basically where we landed here yesterday. And then it was very short-lived. It was a quick and sudden spike down, gave back all of the move, brought it back to the lows, and so far here as we start the new week, it's just been in this range that we saw. And so price is constricting. On the downside, this 9,500 mark has been support. We've seen a few wicks to the downside below that, but generally speaking, 9,450, 9,500 has been support. That's this first level. This was really the good bounce level. Take a shot at it here, take further trade bounce, but then it failed, and took another shot at it last week. It was a very timid bounce. I got out too early, and now I'm looking at it as, does it hold again this time? If it tests it again, I personally don't think it will hold. And in fact, if it tests it again, I think we'll undercut these most recent lows. And so where do we land? 9,400, 9,350, maybe lower, right? That's what I'm looking for here. Could that be a little bit of a shakeout? Yeah, that could be. And in fact, you can get kind of one of these fake out shakeouts, and then it gets going, kind of clearing out to the longs, the last of the longs, and then we get going. So I'm always on the lookout for that, but I would be a little bit more caution until one of two things. We either take out this support here, or we take out yesterday's high, and we're at decision point, right? This is as we start the new week. Which way does it go? It's going to be resolved here. Personally, I think in the next day or two, I can't imagine we'd just go sideways here for the rest of the week. Not considering the structure that's starting to set up here. So just kind of be on the lookout for those two big swings. Look for the volume to start coming in here one way or the other. But I think dips will be good opportunities from more of an intermediate long-term perspective. That's at least how I'm going to be approaching it. But in the near term, caution, maybe even good short trades starting to set up here. So looking at the BTC again, those are the key numbers to be watching on the downside right now, is just that sub 9,500 level. And then on the upside, 9,900. If it starts to hold above that on the 4-hour, then you're likely going to see the next leg up in the direction that it moves. So again, I'm still betting on maybe this lower 9K range. And that's really not that far away when you think about it. I mean, we're at 9,700. 9,200 would be a $500 move. That's nowadays not that big of a move in Bitcoin anymore, right? So it's certainly in the realm of possibility, and it can happen pretty quick. I mean, we've seen those big candles before. So that's it. That's what I'm looking for on the BTC side. And if that plays out that way, if Bitcoin starts to crack that lower level, then I'm thinking some of these other names that have been rallying finally pause. Names like Ethereum here, for example. This double top is not really playing out, right? This double top we were looking at last week, it held the neckline again. It made, in fact, a higher low here over the weekend. And you still got to keep an eye on this lower trend line that's rising, right? That's could be a little bit bear flaggish, but the longer it goes this way, the more likely it's just going to be this nice bullish ascending base consolidation here. It could remain choppy and wicky within this range, but if it continues to rally here, then this is starting to negate this potential double top pattern, and in fact looks bullish and setting up for a nice ascending triangle base. And if you look at the daily chart, it's kind of interesting because you've got this drop, this rally, this drop so far has held the moving averages, barely even hit the 10-day EMA one time, and has closed above the daily 10 EMA. So it has just been resilient, but this last couple of days looks a little odd, kind of like a little bit of a rising wedge type setup. So again, I'm neutral, and mostly because of Bitcoin. I think if Bitcoin finally cracks to the downside, you can see this guy finally take out this little wedge here that it's dropping. But where does it go, right? Does it just retest 250 again and then get going? That's what I'm looking for there. Potential short opportunity, but I'd be watching this lower trend line first and waiting for that to crack, as opposed to preempting it right now, just because it's neutral, right? It's kind of one of those, it could go either way. BTC still holding support. but that lower trend line is starting to come in. So decision time, my friends, decision time. But look at that. I mean, it's just kind of a choppy, interesting market. It hasn't really been a lot of momentum. I mean, yeah, you could have bought the dip here at 260, but the high yesterday was 275, and it's just been just kind of choppy. But big picture, man, surprisingly how nice it's held up. Look at that strong rally and just going sideways, right? If you're bullish, that's the best type of consolidation, just kind of this sideways action, because it sets up a new base from which you could break out. And on the upside, closing above that 286, 287, then I think you're all systems go for another leg up, and you're looking at 320s, maybe even higher at that point. If we look left here, I mean, the next big resistance from recent times is basically that range, right? That 320 range. And then after that, it's got quite the gap until around 365 and 400. And so if this consolidation holds and we get a breakout, 320s, 325 is your first target, and above that 360, 400. That's quite the move. It doesn't look like that on the chart, but when you start putting percentages on that, that's a big move, right? This is 20%, then quickly 25%, then 40%. I mean, that's a nice move if ETH can hold up here. So, got to look at both scenarios. I think pullbacks, again, are probably just in the big picture good opportunities, and not necessarily the end of this near-term miniature bull phase that we've seen here. This 2-month bull markets, right? The 2-month alt season. Not even 2 months. It was more like 6 weeks. But hey, it was good. So ETH looking interesting there. Looking at an ETH BTC here. Again, look at that pattern. Just holy smokes, holding up really well. A little bit of an ascending base there. Clear resistance showing up. So the breakout will be, pretty evident when it happens. Volume is drying up here on this consolidation. And so all the signatures are there for a nice ascending base. If we go to the 4-hour view of this, you can see the rising highs and the price just very tight, very narrow here. And so, man, what a good setup there from a bull case scenario. And so maybe we get that ETH outperformance if Bitcoin holds up. If Bitcoin takes out that 9,900 10K, start watching this guy here, because it'll lead the way up. It's been one of the leaders right recently, and this consolidation is probably one of the stronger consolidations that we're seeing in the market, right? If you look at some of the other big cap names versus BTC here, I'll go real quick and then we'll come back to them and do some deep diving. But XRP, not quite as strong. EOS BTC, not quite as strong. Litecoin actually is pretty good. Let's go to Litecoin BTC here real quick. Holding up pretty good. A little bit more wide and loose, obviously not as clean and constricting there as Ethereum, but you get the idea, right? Some of those bigger cap names, let's go to like a BNB, BTC, right? Not quite as strong. Just kind of pulled back a little bit further here in this most recent consolidation. And again, just to kind of rehash, right? Going back to ETH BTC, just narrowing, continue to head up, testing the upper range of the bound. So good stuff there. So hands down, I mean, ETH is, at least right now, definitely showing the most relative strength from these bigger cap names, holding up the best during this consolidation. So very nice to see that. Looking at some of these other most recent names, I covered a few over the week or heading into the weekend. I'll quickly recap on those. Looking at Aeon, that was a nice break from this trend line here, and going into the weekend we saw this crack. It gave you a throwback entry here, pulled right back to the 22 EMA twice on that 4-hour chart, and then finally had that quick little pop as BTC was just kind of shaky here. But it was a nice little pop. I mean, it was a quick 30% move right after that breakout to the wick there. But as is often the case, volatile, very shaky, pulling right back. This will be interesting to see if this is a throwback entry. It's basically coming right back to the top of this range right now, this prior breakout range, trying to retest it. If it comes back further, I don't want to see this one get much below 1370. If it does, really starts to look negative, especially considering the most recent rally basically paused right at that last prior high, right? You don't want to see it just fully retrace, otherwise it starts to look like a big double top. But that was nice. If you guys haven't seen the videos on support and resistance, there's indicators and all that good stuff that help you, and I have nothing against indicators, nothing. In fact, I have a proprietary indicator that I've developed and all that, and I use it. But the most simple and often the most effective means of technical analysis is just basic support and resistance. I've got a video on that. I believe this is an open course. I don't believe this is a one of the locked ones for subscribers. So go check that out if you haven't. It's 24 minutes. It just kind of gives you some key concepts to understand with support and resistance. And honestly, I mean, in most of my trading these days, those levels are where I plan my targets and my entries, because it just happens very often. I mean, there's other things to factor in, price action, learning how to read it, and volume, and then yes, adding some indicators later. But man, look at the most recent high here at the top here on February 3rd. I mean, almost to the penny, you saw this second swing here recently hit that same number, AE on BTC. Go check that out. And that's just always interesting when I see that. And me personally, the way I typically will trade something like that is I'll front run the prior target. You know, a little bit of game theory there. I'm thinking, okay, if everybody's seen that target and they think they're going to get out there, I'm going to get out before them, blah, 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 right? And so you start to scale out into the target. And if it just blasts right through, then great. Then I just look for a pullback entry at that point and reload, because it just shows the relative strength. But it's always just, I mean, I've been doing this for so long, and it just never ceases to fascinate me when I see things just pause at these seemingly insignificant numbers, whether it's a Fib ratio or a prior high or prior low. It's just always interesting. So that's AE on BTC. We covered that one here. Potential throwback entry. Atom BTC here. Cosmos was looking at this one here heading into the weekend. Hasn't quite had the rally. Was looking pretty good into the weekend. This has been one of the weaker one, if you will. When it comes to the bigger cap names, right? Most of the other ones had a pretty good 2020 relative to Bitcoin. And you can see here in all of 2020, this has actually been on a downtrend versus Bitcoin. So that's interesting. But I'm thinking it may be done. If we go to the daily chart, starting to see some volume come in here over the last couple of days. This most recent last 2 days on the pullback has been on lighter volume. And so you definitely want to keep an eye on it, potentially finally starting to reverse. And this most recent pullback is actually healthy, because it'll tell us if that reversal is going to hold or not, right? If you get this higher low start to form right here, you know, that's going to be higher than these lows, then that's good. If you get the higher low on lower volume, and then if volume starts coming back in when it takes off, that's ideal. That's what you want to see. And it really starts to confirm this attempt to break the downtrend finally. So that's what I'm watching right now. Not confirmation yet, but you're getting an attempt, right? For the most part, it's been lower lows and lower highs all year. This is the first higher high. Now you want to see a higher low and then get going again. So definitely want to watch Atom BTC for some catch up if the rest of the market decides to finally get going. Looking at it from the USD side, it's a lot clearer. The breakout point, very flat range, right? Just setting up around that $5 mark. And so 503, 505, around there, 510. Starting to hold above that, then that's a breakout. And you saw a lot of volume coming off the lows. It tested that lower range at $4, bounced right back to fives. So I would definitely keep an eye on that one here. And this might be the easier signal, right? Looking at the USD pair a little bit more might be the clearer one to watch. So I'd be watching that one there. Going to some of these other ones here. Before I cover the rest of the market here, looking at the stock market, holy moly. So on the left here, I've got the SPYs, that's the ETF for the S&P 500. And then I've got Apple here on the right. And today my trading was in Apple. I was mostly trading it to the downside here. Took a little quick bounce on one of those trades, but whoops. Sorry about that. Mostly trading it to the downside here. And of course the SPYs are retesting today's lows here, which it's one of the strategies when you get the bounce trades. It's hard to see here probably, but there's a purple line right in the middle of the chart here. That's what we call the VWAP, the volume weighted average price. Probably the indicator that I use when it comes to trading stocks. I also use an anchored VWAP when things are trading like 2 day. I use a 2 day VWAP here, but you know, I may keep some moving averages on there, but for the most part, it's literally price and volume action, support resistance levels, and I'll keep an eye on the VWAP. It's just more of a guide, right? Are we below or above it and all that good stuff? But it's interesting to see that we had this huge gap down over the weekend. Let me show you Friday's price action, right? So Friday's close was up here at 334, and then of course over the weekend, once the pre-market started to get going in the East Coast, just really started to sell off, had a little bit of a bounce, retested the lows, and then caught another little bit of a bounce right into VWAP here, and now it's starting to roll over. Good chance we crack the low of the day, but that may be a place to cover the shorts there. But SPY's getting hit pretty hard. If you look at the daily chart of this guy here, let me go to that and just give you the 1-day chart. There you go. You know, it's just rallied. Big drop here. I mean, we had this big high and then pop, dropping right to the lows, and it's literally testing right here. If it cracks below that, that's going to be a big ugly top here starting to form on the general stock market. So we're kind of at an interesting juncture here in the broader stock market. Apple and some of these other FANG leaders, right, already toppy, right? I mean, they've cracked. Here was the prior bases. It was just kind of getting toppy, and this gap down here today cut underneath all that. So what tends to happen is you get a bounce, but then it starts to fade into that prior support, and you get another leg down. So that's what I'm going to be looking out for here in the next couple of weeks. If we get that bounce, where does it start to fade, and we finally crack lower? So again, Apple's getting hit because of impeding supply chain impacts due to the coronavirus. And you know, the market for the most part over the last couple of weeks has just kind of waved it off, right? I mean, there's been a few industries that have been hit hard. Obviously, you look at something like Royal Caribbean, right? Smacked. You look at Carnival Cruise Lines, right? Smacked pretty hard. But for the most part, some of the other big tech and some of the other big cap names haven't really felt it. But now they're finally starting to react. And especially, you know, those that are going to be impacted by supply chain issues, we'll feel it in Q2 and Q3 of this year, because, you know, those supply chain issues are more longer term, right? It's not like the factories in China stop and we feel that here a month later. It's a little bit more longer term, but it's going to start to reverberate and send some ripples across the global industries. And so that's what I'm looking for. Like I mentioned in my last stream, I have a friend who just got back from mainland China after being there for several years, and it's worse than you guys think. The media is like, obviously China does a lot to keep things under wraps and you know, all that stuff. So there's, you know, they don't just let journalists walk around and flash pictures everywhere and send them away and post them online like they do here in the US. And so it's certainly worse than what we're hearing in the media in terms of like the shutdown and how restrictive they are on letting people move around the country freely. And so because of that, I think the supply chain still has more to the downside, right? Because things are just not back to normal yet. People aren't going back to work yet and all that stuff. Airports are still kind of ghost towns. But there you go. So there's Apple. Most of the other big names are getting hit. So we'll see. I'm looking for a little bit of a bounce. That was a pretty sharp pullback here at the open, but we'll see if things get going. Gold, looking at gold real quick. Gold market, actually, you know what, I'm going to go to my metals watch list, and then I'll hop back to the crypto, guys. So looking at gold real quick here. Gold is continuing to rallying, crossed over that, you know, on the futures over that $1,700 mark. My target is 1,800. That was the last big number way back in the day here. So the big number back here was, you know, almost 1,800. 1,790 is what I'd be looking for, and then around 1,800. And I remember I was actually working on my graduate degree during this whole run-up, and that was the big debate. You know, it was a bunch of financial folks, and people were arguing, well, what's gold, and what value does it have, and it has no intrinsic value, and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it was just continuing to rally. We hit 1,800. And then you started seeing all the videos on CNBC about gold this and gold that, and let's go to a gold vault, and let's go to a gold mine. And sure enough, that was the top. And it was just straight down from there. But here we are, kind of rallying back up. So looking for that 1,790 mark, maybe 1,800. And I think that'll be a good pausing point for now on the gold. But man, been a nice rally here. If you look at the anti-gold, which is the Btc or the USD, it had a little bit of a pullback, but it's always interesting right now because gold has been rallying even as the US dollar has been rallying. And that's generally not the case. They kind of move in inverse, but look at this. The US dollar index has been continuing to rally here. Now it did in the last day have that big spike down, and that caused gold to push, but it's always interesting to see when they move in tandem there. You look at bond markets, right? The 30-year yield hit an all-time low on Friday, And so you had all these cross currents that don't normally make sense, right? It's like, wait, bonds are in a bubble, stocks are in a bubble, gold is in a bubble. Wait, which one's right? You know? And so it's kind of interesting to watch like CNBC and listen to the financial media. They're just all kind of confused, like what's going on here? Which one's the right one? If stocks are in a bubble and everything else is in a bubble, then what's going to happen here? But you know, you got to remember all the liquidity that's being pumped into the system is causing that, and I don't think the ramifications of that have yet to be felt in the broader market, but they will eventually. The chickens will come home to roost. All right, so looking at BTC, Tezos crossing down. Let's go look at the Tezos. Oh, still rolling over here a little bit. And I posted a tweet talking about Tezos, some potential distribution showing up here. You got this bearish divergence that was starting to show up as it started to make new relative highs. You had some big volume selling here most recently, and that's all signs of distribution. That's all signals that there's some profit taking going on, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean it comes crashing down, but it at best is due for a pause, and we're seeing it. I mean, it may be hard for you guys to see on the screen here, but you can see these big candles here. These are all red bars. These are all selling side, and on the buy side, it's much smaller volume. That's distribution. That's just signs of profit taking and selling. Where it lands is anyone's guess. I have my theories. I think it will hit $3, and then after that, maybe, you know, the 250, 260 range. And then, you know, longer term, then maybe that may be the place to go look at it. But right now, that's what I was looking for on Tezos. And it's always interesting because, you know, for the most part, 99.999% of you guys are very cordial, very respectful. I have nothing against alternative opinions. If you guys totally disagree with me, that's fantastic, right? Like, it's not that big of a deal, right? Everybody has their opinion, and that's okay. But it's funny because when I posted that Tezos tweet talking about, hey, there could be a pullback here, one particular individual was just vehemently angry about me posting anything negative about Tezos and just started to attack me personally, and I was like, okay, someone's a bag holder. It's like, dude, it was kind of comical, but it's like, okay, the 12-year-olds start coming out. So if I give a negative point of view on a particular bag that you're holding, don't take it personal. Hey, you just have to hope I'm wrong, right? I hope I'm wrong on some of these sometimes. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. So welcome to the internet. But yeah, Tezos BTC 3000 would be kind of the first one I'd be looking at as your kind of your support zone around that 3000 sat level. And then below that, honestly, because of the big run up, I'd be looking at more some Fib ratios as some pullback zones. And so let me look at that. If I go here, I'll start with that as the impulse move down. You know, go into that 382. 382 puts you right at 3150, and then that 3000 mark that I'm looking for is here in the middle. So 50% puts you right around 2900 or so. That's where I have this blue highlight going. So that might be it. That's the 50% retracements. That's starting from the impulse leg that started at the end of January. If you go like complete bottom to complete top, wick to wick, then, you know, it pulls it down a little bit further. But I generally don't tend to do that just because, I mean, it depends on the time frame that you're trading. But a lot of times the better fib is what they call the impulse move. And what was that last leg that really started the big run, right? And it's a little bit subjective. You can say, no, it started back here. Some people will say, no, it started back here, or no, it was on this big breakout candle day, right? So that's the challenge with these indicators here. But yeah, in pullback mode, no real surprise there. I mean, it was, the signals were starting to show up, the warning flags were there, but we'll see how far it comes down. Looking at BTC again here real quick, starting to crack below that 9,700. I'm going to take the anti-CZ route. Slap yourself if you paid over 10,000 for Bitcoin. Oh, that's funny. Remember how CZ always likes to post every time Bitcoin cracks over 10K? Slap yourself if you sold Bitcoin under 10K. Well, I'm going to start saying it. Slap yourself if you bought Bitcoin over 10K. Oh, there's going to be more opportunities, my friends. Let's go to ETH. ETH holding up right. Let's keep going down the list here. We'll see what else we got going on. So we covered, well, we didn't cover it in a whole lot of detail, but let's look at it again. Litecoin. Litecoin BTC here. Double toppies. One of you guys posted that on the comments here. Maybe. Yeah, that's certainly a valid scenario there. If you get that pullback to the support zone again, if it comes all the way down to, what is that, 7,000, then yeah, I wouldn't expect that low to hold, and you could see that crack. And most likely, if it does smack down, then the next big target is down here at 6,500. So that's what I'd be looking at there. How does it look on the USD side? Litecoin USD, you know, lower high in place right now. Big support so far at 66, give or take, then 62. So you've got a window, you got a range right in that zone there. So what next here? Link. Somebody asked for the link. Looking at the link BTC here. Whoops, sorry, hit the wrong button there. Link BTC. Seeing some pretty decent pullback here today, starting to test this support. Looks like it's ready to crack. So I'd be looking at, this is where you want to see it bounce. If it's going to hold, this is where you want to see it bounce. Personally, the chart doesn't look like it wants to hold. I'd be looking more for this lower line that I marked up at the last stream, which is 30, just call it 36.7, 3600 around there. That'd be the first kind of key level to be watching there. But looking at it on the USD side, because this was the one that set up that big breakout. Let me zoom out here for you guys. That was the big breakout over that, you know, $3 mark. Big rally here. It's right at the 22 EMA on the daily, which is around $3.80, 3.83, and that's kind of your first line in the sand, if you will. Interestingly enough, if you look left at these prior highs on Coinbase, that's basically where it's at right now. So this would be interesting to see if it starts to find a low in and around here. But it is pulling back here a little bit of a volume decrease on that pullback. How's it look on something with a little bit more history here? You know, that was, yeah, that's Link USD on Binance there. So all right, what else? Icon. Looking at the ICX here. Oh man, looks like couldn't quite get past that 382 on the bounce. We had the bounce right off that 60%, 618. It's pulling right back. Let me clear that for you guys. This one's interesting here. It did hold the moving averages, and it's holding it again. But was that it? Was that the lower high? Is it about to roll over, or does it hold again at the 22 EMA on the daily? That's where I'd be watching. If you're on the bull case, you want to see this guy hold here around that 3600 level. That's what I'd be watching there. How's it look on USD? ICX, Icon, Tethers. Yeah, couldn't crack that resistance there. That's always interesting. I had this line from before. Actually, this is one I mentioned on Friday as a potential breakout name. It looked like it was, and that was the level to be watching on the breakout. Never took it out. I mean, it had a couple wicks over it, but just couldn't do it. So, yeah, not looking too positive on Icon right now. All right, power. I've got the power. Oh, this one's interesting here. It's been trying to get some momentum going here so far on this daily. Now, this is a smaller cap name, so those moves are quick and furious. You get that one-day pump of 40%, and then you get 2 days of giving back 20%, and then another one-day pump of 40%. So, oh, if you can catch them, good for you, but they're not easy. I mean, that basically happens like in the span of 2 hours, right? It's like there's 2 hours of movement and then just grind lower. So there's some profit taking that happens in those moves, but if you can catch them. Land. Someone asked for land here. Looking at land, I'm going to zoom out, go to that 4-hour view. Still range bound, but the bigger picture, the macro picture is not bad. It did have that breakout over, what is that, 320, and so far still holding. The lower trend line's holding. The moving averages are still holding. So yeah, not too shabby here. You got to watch that lower trend line. If that starts to give after this rally, then you'll probably see a deeper pullback at that point. But for now, the trend is your friend. Hashgraph, oh man, the smackening. Let's go look at that here. I'm going to take all this off. This is an older chart, but look at that. It's just kind of slicing right through the moving averages here as they're starting to curl over. And you know, you have a single day that produced this entire range, and that makes it tough because it didn't stair step its way up or anything, and so there's not a lot of support, right? You have basically a wide bar if you exclude the wicks. Here's the top of the range, and anything in between is just kind of, you know, not real clear unless you really dial it in. Looking at the lower time frames, I'm going to go to the 1 hour chart here. 1 hour view, super low time frames, but looking at the 1 hour view, there's a little bit of support right here, basically, right where price is at. So does it hold? That's anyone's guess. If not below that, then the blue line around 400 is where I'd be looking at as your next downside target here. So this 400 level. Or 400? 330. Yeah, maybe 400. Hold on. Yeah, 350. It's at 400 now. That's the support. 350. So, but yeah, I don't know. This one's tough. I mean, it had that kind of flash in the pan move. Generally, after a move like that, you do get a bounce. You get a pretty decent bounce somewhere along the way. And again, maybe looking at the 618 retracement when the bounce finally happens. But this is tough because it's like it's kind of giving back most of that move here. But it's right at the 22 EMA now. So maybe it pulls one of those icon moves that we saw, gives you a little bit of a quick bounce, quick 30%, and then gets going to the downside again. Undercut the 618 if you use that move there. If you go from the exact low, 618 is at 380, so you're almost there. You want to see it hold, start holding in and around this range. You don't want to see it get much below that if you're liking it. All right, I think I've covered most of the names that were in the comments initially. Let me go through the list again here because I know you guys have posted a few more, and I will try to spot them all as I read your comments and drink a little bit of coffee. Let's see here. Let's see here. So what's the sentiment out there? What are you guys thinking? Bullish? Bearish? Short-term bearish? Long-term bullish? Vice versa? BNB, let's add that on the list here. Theta. Didn't cover algo, I don't believe so. Let's cover algo, and I'll do both dollar and BTC pair on that. And there. Let's look at Tron. And while I wait and read the comments here, let me pop over here. I'm going to go back to the dashboard page. If you're not familiar with the Node Insiders, nodeinsiders.com, there's actually another link in the description, which is kind of an info page, a landing page, if you will. So if you want to learn more about what this site entails, what you get for it, go check that out. It's basically a subscription-based site. You're going to get access to the entire video course library as well as these proprietary market screens. There's an automated trending list, which is populated real time. You've got these alerts that come in real time. We've got a bot status and the top BMI watch list there, as well as you get emailed these trading bot status for the Bitcoin trading strategy, which is 4-hour and daily. Now, there has been some requests to get emails on the altcoins. The capability is there. I just haven't enabled the emails to go out automatically. Until I add a, on the accounts page for the users, I'm going to add an option to be able to, obviously opt out of the various emails that are coming through, just to respect, the spam, and don't want to get to the point where it's like suddenly people are getting too many emails. So it'll be more optional. Like if you want it, you can get them. If not, you don't have to. So once I get that set up, then we'll get the emails going for those. And I'm also going to add an email for the trending names. But it won't be like every time the list changes. It'll be more on a cron job type thing where maybe, every 2 or 3 days you'll kind of get a sample of what's on the trending list. And that's it. And we'll just kind of keep it going. And depending on the requests and whatever you guys want to see, we'll adjust it. I mean, we're flexible here. Algorand, the top of the list right now. Keeper Network, Dragon has been on there for a while. I still have some Dragons, man. Talk about an old bag. Power, Tomo. Did we look at Tomo? We didn't look at Tomo. Let me add that to the list here. We didn't look at Algo. I'll look at that guy there. And then go into the bot status page here. I'm going to filter this out. Is there anything in the green here? ETH versus Bitcoin is bullish. Litecoin, BNB, and Atom are caution there. Everything else is showing red. As far as trading bot status, most everything is starting to flip flat, but you still got the bot status is still long. ETH BTC still long. Litecoin still long. Atom BTC and Tezos, which we already know is rolling over, and Link. So those are the ones. Short run, Cardano 4-hour bot is long, and ETH. Let me look at Cardano. I don't believe it. Let's see here. Yeah, it's kind of flat. It's just in the chop. When charts are going sideways and I see the signals kind of go long, flat, I just kind of make note of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, all right, it's range bound. And then I look at it this way, right? It's like, okay, if it starts to crack this level, 630, it's a good long. Other than that, this is the support, and then the next level down. So kind of a neutral stance on that guy there. BNB, BTC here, looking at that guy. You know, still trying to hold this support here, but it's getting interesting here. Decision time for a lot of these names as they really start to constrict here. Trending below the moving averages. The 4-hour 10 EMA tried to get above the 22. It's starting to roll over right now, so still just cautious here. I'd be cautious until we can get either above what is that, 2350 on the BTC pair, or look for 2250 on the downside. Now looking at it from the USD side, which is generally the better one for Binance in my opinion, this does not look healthy. You've got a drop, lower high, couldn't even muster much of a bounce here recently. It failed at 23 bucks, and so 23 bucks is very near term your resistance. If it starts to hold above that, that's good, because then that'll confirm this very short term higher lows. But if I had to guess, I'm thinking 21 is your next target on the downside. And then below that, there's not a lot of, there's no levels here, right? It's just kind of a gap up until 18 bucks. So I'd be looking at a retest of the $21 range. If it makes a low there and quickly reverses, that's positive. Then you can have this little kind of like double bottom scenario. But right now, the trend is not your friend on this guy. I'd look for $23 to get recaptured there, and it starts looking a little bit better at that point. Let me see who else here. We looked at most of these guys. We looked at Atom. All right, let's go to Algo. Looking at the Algorand. Algo. I'm going to start with the BTC pair and then the USD side next, okay? So looking at BTC, now Algo had a nice little rally here. I remember seeing that one on the alerts. I didn't do anything with it, but that's a good little secondary breakout here. Found some support at 4,300, clearing some resistance, and good volume on the breakout too. A little bit of a bearish divergence on this most recent breakout, but this is very early on in the breakout. Now, just so you remember, like when price is rallying, the RSI is running depending on the how steep the slope is. And when it goes sideways, it's very natural to see that RSI pull back in. It helps it reset. And so when you get that first push higher, the RSI is not going to be as high. So it'll appear like a divergence, but that's not confirmed because price can just keep going higher and eventually the RSI catches up, right? So just kind of make note of that. But if it does pull back here, if it crosses this line, that's a failed breakout. So basically on the daily or the 4-hour chart, this big candle had that big volume there. That's the line in the sand, in my opinion. If it pushes above that and just quickly retraces, one, it'll break below the 10 EMA on the 4-hour, and it'll negate that entire bullish breakout. And with that, at that point, the bearish divergence would be confirmed. And so that's usually not a good sign if you see that. But for now, it's holding. Anything above that line, I think it's potential pullback entry there. Looking at the USD side, pretty much the same pattern, the same setup. Very positive. Again, I'd be looking at about 45.70, 45.80 is kind of that line in the sand. You really want to see it start holding above that. At most, if you're looking at it from the USD pair, which is probably a little cleaner, at most this lower trend line, right? If it pulls back and gives you a throwback entry, don't want to see it crack below that line. Got to see it bounce from there. So that might actually be a pretty good opportunity if the market holds up. But just keep in mind, BTC is looking a little vulnerable here. And as we know, if Bitcoin takes a dump, the rest of the market's going to feel it. So just something to note there. But man, the Bitcoin. Uh-oh. ETH. Cracking that trend line. Decision time. All right, let's keep going here. Theta. What's going on with Theta token? Not too shabby. Not too shabby, my friends. Had a nice little push here earlier. Still looking pretty good. Kind of edging out of range there. Yeah. What else? Tron. What's Tron up to these days? Looks like it's rolling over here, giving back a lot of those gains from the last little run. It's still right at support, but you know, it's anyone's guess if that's going to hold. Tron USD is probably the better pair as well. Let me see here. Tron, yeah, it's cracking. Lower lows, lower highs. Tomo chain. Now this one again, wide and loose, kind of all over the place. When it comes to small cap names like this, it's like look for the dip buys, not the breakout buys, because they're just they wick out a lot. But this one, you know, big picture is certainly gaining some momentum, picking up some speed. Next target up is around that 66.90, and then above that you've got room to run to around 7,400. So Tomo holding up. Let's see, I think we covered most of the names you guys want to look at. What's on the top BMI watch list? This is kind of a good early indicator to see if there's anything holding up more. We looked at Algo, some small cap KuCoin names, APPC. Oh man, that's a name from yesteryear's. Microcap. Let's see what those AppCoins names. Nah. What else? USD pairs. How's BCH looking? Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, nope. That's it. Not a whole lot of names on the list right now. Looking at the alerts, some KuCoin names moving. Theta, ARK, power pivot on ARK. That was earlier. VRA, man, this is small caps mostly. Theta, Cardano, Algo, we already looked at those. ETH, VeChain, that's right. VeChain was another one that I was looking at the end of last week here. And VeChain is interesting because I was looking for this pullback right to the line, which it did, almost to the penny, and it started to rally right off there. We looked at this one at the last live stream as a potential, you know, this throwback. This is where you wanted to see it hold. And so far it held. It started to bounce against that. So that's interesting. But it is finding a little resistance here. So again, I think that's because of Bitcoin. This is the USD pair. So VeChain's going to pull back if Bitcoin pulls back. But looking at VeChain, BTC here. Let me go to the daily chart on this guy because it's a small set name. You know, could be ready. Could be ready. I wouldn't want to see it get much below 66 or so. VeChain. All right, let's go back to BTC here. Where we at? BTC testing that 9,600, and that's it, my friends. It's a red day across the space here. I think it's kind of decision point. BAT. Looking at BAT, there was a request for BAT. This is BAT USD. I already had this marked out. Apparently, it looks like we had a bounce right to that point. 28 cents, couldn't crack it, giving it back up pretty quick. On the downside, 25 cents, maybe 24, but if not, I'd be looking at a retest of this prior breakout point, 23 cents on the BAT USD side, and that might be a good place to look at it for a potential bounce from there. BAT USD or BAT BTC, too many letters. I'm starting to say too many acronyms. Getting confused here. Yeah, it pretty much had that bounce to that first target, couldn't get going. So I'd be looking at the USD side for that one a little bit more. Let's look at Mana. Remember Mana? Remember Mana back in the day? Decentraland? Oh wait, that was last week. Remember that guy? If it starts to lose that 5 cent mark, look out below. And I'd be looking at around very quickly getting to the upper threes. So it's at a little bit of a juncture here. I think I had it marked up on a different exchange. Yeah, right here. That's my target on the downside if it cracks 5 cents, which I think it probably will. If I had an E-Trade account, should I move my money because Morgan Stanley bought them? I don't know. What difference does it make? Everyone's buying everybody. Scottrade got bought out. E-Trade's getting bought out. They're picking up all these small retail names. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like, there's only a handful of clearinghouses anyway, so regardless of which stock platform you're on, all your stock trades and everything, at the end of the day, they get cleared through the same handful of names. Goldman Sachs, all those guys. It's kind of all the same. When it comes to stocks, personally, my consideration, I mean, if you're scared of like counterparty risk and they go under and you don't get your money back, then okay, that's a different story, right? But when it comes to trading platforms, I look at two things, right? What's the cost and what's the quality of executions? Like, if there's a lot of slippage, or if I can get fills, especially on the short side, like for example, Scottrade, it's a pretty good platform, I think, or Swim and all that, but it's just really tough sometimes to get fills on the short side. Like they don't have any borrows or anything, which is kind of annoying. And when I use some of my other ones, they're there, right? It's like, oh, I can borrow here. Why can't I short on Scottrade? So, but I'll pay a commission on the other side. So it just kind of depends. Herman in the house. Yeah, everything's looking cautious, my friend. I'm still kind of taking the cautious stance there. So yeah, we looked at the SPY. I'll go back to that here. I mean, kind of covered the bigger picture. Now, I think it's topped. I mean, that's an ugly crack to the downside on volume. It's a big gap down, and so you're going to have this gap that's going to want to be filled on a bounce. So I'd be looking at that, but there's no question about it. Like, that's just a very bearish pattern, and it's about to test this lower resistance here around that 320 mark, and so, or lower support, excuse me. So yeah, maybe we undercut that, we get a bounce, but at that point I'd be looking for a lower high. Just not pretty. Names like Apple, some of the bigger cap names, oops, have seen similar tops, but again, potential bounces in play. But after that is the question, right? Do they just bounce, make a lower high, and is this the beginning of the big pullback? Personally, I think stocks top in 2020, and that's just kind of been my going in position this year. And I didn't think it'd be because of a black swan scenario like coronavirus, but I think it was just kind of due, and I thought maybe the election cycle would finally hit the stock market, and maybe we get that. Let me see here, what else? The Tesla, the almighty Tesla, dropping back down to that 830 mark. Potential little double top showing up here on Tesla. Uh-oh, right at 950. We'll see. Tesla's pretty good, but it's definitely overvalued. Space, Virgin Galactic, Richard Branson, for those of you that are familiar with the guy. What a move it had to. Pulling back here. All right. But yeah, I'm taking it easy, one day at a time. Today my trade was short, on the short side, obviously. On Friday it was on the short side. What did I trade on Friday? It was, what was it? First Solar and FSLR. I'm trying to remember what the other one was. Was it Nvidia? Maybe it was Nvidia. I thought I was short on Nvidia. Yeah, I was short on Nvidia. Nice gap down here today. But yeah, one day at a time, one day at a time. Okay, let's see what else we got going on here. I'm going to just cycle through some of these other names. We've covered quite a bit. If you're just joining us, I looked at, you know, the broader market cap. I looked at the Btc Dominance. I'm still thinking Dominance bounces more as the consolidation continues. And then just looking at some of the pullback levels in Bitcoin and Ethereum to be watching. And then we went through a bunch of names. If you missed it, SPY, Gold, Apple, ETH, Litecoin, Icon, Link, Atom, Ion, Power, Land, HBAR. What else? BNB, Theta, Algo, Tron, Tomo, maybe a handful of other names. Some of the stronger names in the market, Algo and ETH, BTC are probably the stronger ones out there right now. You know, in the middle cap, big cap names. So obviously there's small caps that are pushing much higher on a percentage basis, but they're short-lived generally, so just be cautious. But this is the one I'm looking at the most, right? This is going to resolve itself here in the next couple of days, so I'd be watching this. On the upside, if it starts to hold over 9,900, good. On the downside, below 94.50, watch out. Probably hitting 91.50 next. Those are my thoughts, but I'm just gonna wait. Gonna wait to see how it plays out. And then after that, where do we bounce, right? What are the thoughts? Most of the names just lagging versus Bitcoin. ETH probably looking, from the big cap name, one of the strongest right now. Let's see here. We looked at Link rolling over. Litecoin's not too bad, not too shabby there. There's Matic, USD, Neo coming right back to support around 13 bucks. Maybe one to be watching at that level. It's a good throwback entry. Omisigo, Harmony, Ontology, Tron. I'm just quickly cycling through some of these names. There's VeChain, Bounced Off, Stellar. A lot of these names are right at support, and they just look vulnerable here. They just look like they're about to take a leg down. So there's XRP. It's going to be interesting. Unless we get the quick shakeout and then a quick rally recovery on strong volume, I'm cautious. Just cautious there. Tezos. Wanchain. Interesting. Wanchain was looking at it way back here. Couldn't quite get there in this most recent rally, but it is, it is starting to form a little reversal here. You had this double bottom. Let me move this. You had this little double bottom form here. Good rally, higher low rally, but now it's testing that. So interesting. This is a tough one. These small caps are just so tough. But let me go to the big picture view. If you go to the daily chart, I mean, a lot of these alts, as you guys know, we've all been saying this for some time now, but 6-8 month bases that are finally coming in, big volume spikes, and so just kind of think about your time frame, right? If you're looking at short-term trading, 1 hour, 4 hour charts, that's a whole different story. But if you're thinking, longer term holds, 6 months, something like that, then you start paying attention to these moves because these are potential big reversals being placed, and once they start going again, the moves could be pretty substantial on a higher time frame, right? Not going to happen overnight, but over the course of months and weeks, then yeah, you can start seeing these high double-digit, maybe triple-digit percentage type moves. But right now, it's just tough to say. Zcash couldn't quite crack that 74 number, rolling over here. 0x pulling right back. Look at 0x. It's interesting. Again, rallied right to resistance. 34 was my target. It went to 35, which was these prior highs, and now giving a throwback right back to the breakout point. That's been the market lately. That's been the market. Hey Jack, welcome my friend. Right. Yeah. Well, that's going to be it today. I know some of you guys are just joining. We covered quite a few names. I don't want to keep it too long. I mean, we got the general gist, and you guys got the levels to be watching here. What happens after we move out of range is going to just depend on how it looks on the volume price action. But for now, just still neutral to cautious in the near term. Okay, in the near term. After that, then we'll see, right? But you guys know my stance. Longer term, intermediate term, I'm still positive. I think alts will have a good year versus Bitcoin. But near term, we've had a good run. We've had a good couple months. You need a breather. Ichimoku. Let me see if I've got my Ichi charts. Ichis. I'm going to go to this is the 4-hour Ichi on BTC. 4-hour Ichi on BTC. Did I just cuss? Looking like it's cracking below the line here. And the thing with Ichi, right, there's different settings. Obviously, there's the defaults. Generally, I have like a double setting, and if you go to the Node Insiders, we do have some Ichi alerts. Ichi alerts. That sounds kind of fun to say. Ichi alerts. And if you're curious, and for those of you that are subscribers, I posted some videos on the Slack channel and the education resources, but it'll explain more on what the Ichi settings are. But very quickly, these are double settings. So if you go to the Ichi, it's basically 20, 60, 120, 30, right? So for those of you that are familiar with Ichimoku, that'll make sense to you. But they're basically doubled up settings. And so look at this. You had this crack to the lower end of the cloud, hitting the bottom, trying to bounce, couldn't rally. Potential bearish Kumo twist starting to forecast here, but it is going sideways too, so just keep that in mind here. If you go to a higher time frame, right, it's a little bit different on the daily, much more positive, but you're well above the cloud here, and you have a bullish Kumo twist. So again, longer term intermediate, this is positive, right? This is saying, hey, the trend has clearly turned. Last time you had that was back here, right? You had a twist back in October of 19. So, but let me pull up the Tikinsen lines on here, because I'm guessing we're gonna hit one of the lines. There's the Kijinsen, TK. Man, the TK is still way down here at 8,700. We're breaking the Kijinsen right now. So on the 4-hour view though, below the cloud again, below the cloud. Okay, my friends, thank you for being here. Thanks for watching, as always. It looks like we got Mike in the house. What's up, Mike? All right, cool. And for those of you in the Slack group, I will see you all on the Slack side.